not, how committed are you to your degree? Like, I've always thought guys that do dentistry, medicine, architecture, these like long ass 20-year degrees, like, you have to really love it to get into that and to stay for the whole time as well.
Yeah, that's quite interesting. Yeah, and that's kind of what I was talking about before, why I'm a bit stuck about what to do. Because the truth and reality is I actually do love dentistry. And I think perhaps one of the differences with doing a vocational course as opposed to a different course is that I'm actually going to be doing this job, right, for probably most of my life. If you're doing something like maths, then maybe like everything you learn on that course is not going to be directly applicable to what you might do afterwards. Like, you know, people these days like get a degree in something and then end up going to a job in something completely different. Whereas obviously in dentistry, you're training to be a dentist and the end goal is to be a dentist. So I feel not just a responsibility, that that implies like I'm being forced, but I feel like some sort of like right, or it's my calling to like do my future patients justice in a way. Like I feel like I'm doing some sort of wrong if, for example, I don't know, we get taught about the properties of a certain material that you place in people's mouths. I'd feel a little bit of wrong if I was to just do the bare minimum in learning about that, and then a few years down the line just be placing this material in someone's mouth without knowing the ins and outs of it, if you know what I mean. So I have other things which I'm aiming towards. I think that's the beauty of doing a vocational course, is I have other things that I'm aiming towards, not just that grade. Obviously, if I get a high grade, I'm still going to be gassed. I'm still going to love, it's still going to fill my ego to see a high number on a piece of paper. Ultimately, I know that if I put in the work and learn and I still get a crap grade, as long as I know in my head that that work that I put in is actually going to help me treat my patients and do justice to my patients, then that is something that's also very important to me. So, so I would say I'm actually quite committed to my degree and committed to learning, especially now with seeing patients, because it's right there. And everything you learn is ultimately put into practice straight away. So it's difficult for me to decide how I want to allocate my time, because I do kind of want to be a little bit of a specialist into my degree and commit into it. That's why I'm confused. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do, but I'm just going with it now, and hopefully it all figures out.
Yeah. To be fair, like, you're getting a good degree from a good uni, like, irrespective of what happens next, you're going to be fine. That's like, I say the same to myself as well. Like, engineering at Bristol, I can't go wrong with that. Unless I'm literally like, yeah, let me not use that word, but.
Don't worry, I got the point. Yeah, literally, you say you're set up in that domain. What about for you? Are you committed? Would you say you actually have a passion towards engineering, and do you really care about it? Or is it just a means to an end?
Yeah, I mean, I'm committed. I love tech. I love engineering. I think university, and I don't know if you feel the same, but like, the way you learn just isn't very inspiring. Like, I can imagine you're seeing patients, that's actually fun, you have to do the work. But when you're just sitting there in engineering, looking at equations, drawing graphs, like, I want to be, actually making something. I want to be using my hands, not a pen and paper.
Oh, okay. That's quite interesting. Do you, I don't know much about like the teaching in engineering. Do you not, wait, for one, are the equations that you do, are they always applied to like practical situations? I'm guessing they are, right?
Technically, I mean, let me explain what engineering is to people that don't get it.
Okay.
I get it a lot, actually. It's funny I say that. Whenever I say I do engineering, like, oh, so you know how to fix a car? I'm like,
what?
Oh man, that's always when I turn off. But no, engineering, like, the way I see it is maths is kind of like recognizing patterns in nature and stuff. Physics is kind of explaining how that applies to real life. And then engineering is using those applications and making a product out of it. Yeah. So from a base level, like, it's important to understand the maths. It's important to understand that a certain amount of material here will increase the stress on a product, which could make a phone bend a certain way. But I'm not really interested in the hows and the whys. I'm interested in the what can I do with it. And for someone who, let's look at like a phone, for example, because I mentioned it, or a laptop. You see the hardware. I want to know how to make a phone with, like, all glass. I don't really care about the glass itself. It's just, how can I do it? Where can I put the battery? Where can I put this, that, and the other? Yeah, sure, physical components don't mean much to me. And because we're always taught it from, not even from the component standpoint, from the maths behind it, like understanding the energy concept of a battery. It's like, this is so high level that I'm never going to need to know my job, especially when it's like you're trying to model something. Like let's say, we have a module about construction and you're trying to model like how many fire exits to have to see where people leave the building and stuff. The math behind that is cool. Like, okay, yeah, you're 10 steps away from the door, but like, you can do that on a calculator. You can simulate that so easily now in modern day technology. There's no need to sit there and figure out, the average pace per person divided by the number of people in the room. Like, a lot of the learnings are so traditional and so abstract that there's just no need to, I don't know. I mean, for me, it's just not inspiring. I'd rather be a MacBook and be told to, like, I don't know, make a game.
Yeah. That's interesting in itself as well. Because dentistry, especially in the early years, that's quite similar. As I mentioned, like properties of a material earlier, like so there might be all this. They might tell you about the setting reaction and how these different chemicals bond to this, but I guess that's not really important. The important thing is to understand that, I don't know, like this material gets hot when you mix it. Like, that's the fundamental thing, is to understand that it gets hot, so don't put it on a patient's cheek or whatever. And that's the practical element of it. And in the early years, it was really like that. You did like theory based and stuff like that. And I guess then it is quite hard to try and make that link into why do I need to know this, basically? Like, all that work's already been done. Just tell me what I need to do and then I can just do it, type of thing. I would say though that when I've been looking at research and getting into research, I think in terms of taking stuff to the next level, that it is quite important to have that knowledge of how that thing works in the first place, as a way to be like, okay, how can I improve this? Or how can I edit this to make it even better in the future? And I've always said as well, with the dentistry degree, it's a bit weird because we learn like such a vast syllabus where we learn the specifics of like human disease, and then we'll learn about like oral cancer really specifically, and then we'll learn about gums really specifically, and then we'll learn about everything else. Like, we'll learn all these modules really specifically. But then some people will go and just be a general dentist, so they'll just learn the basics of everything. But then some people in that course are going to want to specialize in gums, let's say. So therefore, having that teaching on the fundamentals and like the nitty gritty of it, I guess, was important for them in a way. And then someone else might want to go into research and think, I don't even want to be a dentist. I don't even care about the actual clinical bit. I just want to sit in a lab and do like experiments and stuff and do that. So it's a bit weird because the degree kind of has to cater for everyone in a way. So if I was a research guy and I just wanted to sit in a lab and you just want to be modeling the thing in a different way, it's kind of hard to cater for us both in that way.
Yeah. That's interesting as well. I think that ties back into our, past discussion about jack of all trades. Like, university very much is teaching you to be like like an all-round dentist or all-round engineer, all-round French translator or whatever. Like, they teach you everything that you need to know instead of specifically. I mean, I guess in later years, if you do a master's or PhD, you specialize. But I guess that's interesting, because before I was like, I completely want to be a jack of all trades. But when it comes to my degree, I don't want to learn about thermodynamics, man. I don't want to look at abstract structures. I just want to do this one specific tech thing. But I completely agree with what you say. Like, you do have to cater towards all types of students, all types of backgrounds, and there's no easy way to do that other than, I guess, providing them with a breadth of knowledge to start with, and then whittling down as you go through in your career.
Yeah. So I think, like, in an ideal world, like, I think it'd be interesting to see, like, can you imagine if they made like another course and they just called it, I don't know, like clinical dentistry, and they just taught you stuff that you needed? Because realistically, like a dentist doesn't just drill teeth and place civilians and does root canals. You could probably teach that to most people, like the practical skills of it. Like, you could teach it vocationally in a way, the same way that like hairdressers are taught, barbers are taught, in the same way that like, like firemen and policemen. It's pretty, I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure most of those are taught in colleges near me, and a lot of it's just practical. Like, this is what you have to do it type of thing.
Bro, so what you're saying is, you're saying my barber can be my dentist as well.
Bro, with the right teacher, your barber can do anything.
Skin fade on the molars and the back.
Yeah, bro. I was gonna say I have to see the fade first to see whether he has the skills to, to translate that first, but potentially. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see if they offered that clinical and they say, okay, we won't teach you the science, we'll literally just teach you how to drill a tooth. If anyone would actually choose that pathway. And the same for you with engineering. If they said, okay, scrap all the theory, we're going to teach you just to, I don't know, some sort of technology career where they're telling you it's all practical from the start. I'm guessing for you, that'd be something you'd be like, yeah, I'd rather just do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Bristol started, was it last year? I think maybe the year before. There's added a course called Entrepreneurship and Innovation. And I'm like, oh my fucking day. It's like, if only, man.
That's like completely you.
Literally, I read the spec and it's like, it just says, course requirements, be called Jordan. It's like, what? Nah, I hear that though. I do think, that's an interesting point because a lot of degrees are very, not vague per se, but quite big. Like medicine, there's so many different ways you can go into medicine, but they just give you this medical degree. I imagine the amount of guys that will do like, is it orthopedics or whatever, or
Yeah,
all these different bits. And the same with dentistry. So if you get to do clinical studies, like obviously it would be hard from a logistical standpoint to just have a massive uni that does everything. But I hear that point because there are a lot of courses where you look at it and it's like I kind of like this aspect, but the rest of it I don't like, or vice versa. You like a lot of it, but there's one module you're not really too keen on. I wonder if they could, effectively execute that and have like specific degrees for specific people.
Yeah, I think, I think a degree is kind of like, it's a bit of a passport that like lets you deal with other things as opposed to you learning it specifically. Like it's just from the skills you learn and having that wide breadth, it kind of, it's like proving to an employer that you have this set of skills really, isn't it? Even though people are going to go off and do different things. The slight discrepancy is because, so the aims of our degree are posted whatever on the General Dental Council's website where they say this is all the things someone should have before we award them this Bachelor of Dental Surgery degree. And they'll have stuff like know the basics of this, know the basics of that. But the exams is nothing about basics. Like, if we learn a topic, then they literally test us on the maddest little, smallest detail that is ultra specific, that literally, as you say, only someone that goes down that route would need to know, like an oral pathologist that studies x-rays their whole life. But yet, for some reason, in undergraduate, they'll test us on that. Like, it'd make a lot more sense for them to actually test the basics and then be like, okay, you know the basics of this, so we're happy to give you the degree. But they don't. Like, in certain papers, they really like to, I guess it's to differentiate grades. I guess it is just to split up the grades. I guess if it was all basic, then most people would get high grades and everyone would kind of be the same. But it's a bit counterintuitive if you ask me. If the teaching is about, these are all types of red patches that can appear in a mouth. But then they say, okay, so what is the genetic sequence that codes for the, like, it's not the basics. That's why, that's why the exam process is a bit faulty in that sense.